I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. Um, I had like a really interesting critique experience, like a couple of days ago when I showed this squash piece that I made. I went to the Met like a month ago, did this performance piece where I dressed up in these clothes, right? Wore this like weird, uh, glasses or this weird visor. I did some weird dance, and then I told people at the Met, like just random people, yo, can you take like a video of me? Um, and so, I danced in front of them in like the neoclassical area of the Met. And, the aspect ratio 16:9 to kind of reflect that sort of like a TikTok sentiment. I'm interested in TikTok. I'm interested in like its cultural implications, like what it's doing to us. But yeah, I brought this piece in, and the reaction was really interesting. And I was wondering if you could help me out a little bit, just in terms of strategy. So I brought this piece in. I started talking about what I did. I went to the Met. I did this performance piece, and they were the reaction was pretty positive at first, and then I started talking about like the kind of the conceptual, or like what I'm interested in conceptually, and the mood in the room really changed to something a little unhappier. It was I started talking about like that I'm interested in race. I'm interested in like the problematic nature of the Met. I'm interested in foregrounding these really incendiary issues, these really issues of whiteness and problematizing and foregrounding these issues. And then the class kind of like went really quiet, and the reaction I thought was like I started sweating. The reaction was kind of negative. Yeah, the reaction was really, I don't think, was very good. And so I was wondering if there's any way you could talk. I think like maybe your work and mine does something similar. I think your strategy is different, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your strategy or the way you frame the way you frame your work. Like the quote unquote smartest kid in the class like takes a deep breath and he goes, "I'm really glad that you started the critique with this, because I was going to get there eventually. I think it's I'm happy that we're gonna start with the most like polarizing, the most radical read of the piece, right? And then so he like sits there for a minute and he like takes a deep breath and he goes, "How do I phrase this in the nicest way possible?" And he says, and he thinks for a minute and he goes, "You're completely tone deaf." And I was like, "Oh geez, okay." He started talking about how the piece that he's confused why. Like he doesn't see any satire in the work. That you're not making fun of anything, or I'm not. He said that he didn't see that I was making fun of anything. I wasn't like throwing tomatoes. They even said like, "Why aren't you throwing tomato sauce or like steak or like gluing yourself to the work?" They were really confused. Even the professor was like really confused on this. Like, we need another piece for you to decide your political agenda. And then they started asking me direct questions. Like, so one of the girls turned to me and she goes, "Why are you making this?" I'm like I just circled back. I'm like, to foreground these issues, right? And she goes, "But why? Like, why are you interested in foregrounding these issues?" And I'm like, do I go back in a circle? What's the deal? I was like, because I'm interested in I was interested in the aesthetic of the Met. Like, I'm interested in neoclassical work, and then the idea kind of came naturally from that. And they're like, "Well, it seems like kind of a secondhand thought then, and you need to spend a little time and think." And then they're like, "You are participating in the very system that's oppressing, or that's the oppressor, right? Like this." They're like, "This work seems really, really tone deaf." And That's really it.
What is it about the neoclassical stuff that's like why'd you foreground yourself in front of the neoclassical stuff exactly?
Because it's rooted in like Eurocentric and phallocentric ideas, I think, and then also I just like the aesthetic. Like I like those are masterful work. I'm interested in the sweat equity and like how in those like older works that like the artist spent time and it looks like the artist spent time on that, and that's like honorific work. And then like at the MoMA or whatever, there'll be like a banana taped to the wall, and that's like, I'm not with that. And that's what a lot of the students are doing, and that's why they're kind of having an allergic reaction to my work in a weird way, I think, because I'm spending time on it.
Well, I mean, one of the things I learned at Cranbrook is about framing, like your work, you know? Mm-hmm. And like whenever you frame your work, like in a kind of like way where you're posing the question to people, like you're almost like inviting them to a specific criticism, because you walked in there and you kind of like told everybody how they're supposed to approach the work.
Yeah.
And then you also framed it with satire, kind of. And I think like the whole world is critiquing based on like instrumentalization right now, like which is what you just walked into. So you kind of were like, yo, here's something to like talk about, and then I am the issue. Mm-hmm. Like it's an unwinning position. I don't think you can win in that position because you just set the parameters like that, like, okay, cancel me or something. Don't frame it. Because you're also creating a lazy observer where they don't have to actually do the work or put themselves out there, put themselves in crisis in order to like actually read the work itself.
Okay.
There's like in that you're just gonna have like a bunch of fingers pointing at you and coming up with ideas like you're wrong. There's no like actual like see, the art thing I think for me is like that. What you need to do is like make it so that people have access to look at themselves somehow and to be self-critical, self-referential. Mm. If they're just looking at you and like, you know, destroying you and you've given them that job, I mean, like, you know.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah, I get that.
Maybe. Am I right? Or because it opens up dialogue. Mm-hmm. But like, and one of the bigger parts, I think, like, say, like, if you're trying to do work where people actually like change their position or learn or understand or like deep dive or something, like you can't put a trap out there for them to go into, you know, in a sense, like it's got to be some kind of give and take on both sides, you know, like, does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to contain this. Like you almost want it to like be free to kind of like roam. Like, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them, they said that, or the majority of the class said that they wouldn't have gotten there. They wouldn't have gotten to the race part. They were sticking with like
TikTok,
fashion and TikTok and like that. I read like that. But then the super smart kid in the class said he would have gotten to the. He said, "Oh, I know. I would have gotten to the race thing. Like that's what I was most interested in." So. But
I think I think that's like an interesting part of culture because like almost every criticism now is framed in that identity politics stuff because I think it's like a shortcut in a way, like where people like have stopped actually kind of like having their own voices, you know, and have just joined on with like groups now. So like I think like everybody's kind of looking at things through that lens right now, you know.
Okay.
I was wondering about the neoclassical stuff, and I think like the way I think of neoclassicism is like the way that like groups used it as propaganda. That's like the evilness that I see in it. Like after, you know, like in Nazi Germany and ideals and stuff like that, you know. That's how I see it as one of the darker movements, you know.
Okay.